My first day at CNN was May 8th, 1990.
And U.S. officials have an added terrorist threat to worry about.
I was a military affairs correspondent for CNN, and I thought it was going to be a relatively quiet beat. This Cold War was winding down, but then all of a sudden, on August 1st, a few weeks later, 1990, Saddam Hussein stuns the world and invades Kuwait. And it became a huge story. The U.S. obviously got involved very quickly.
This will not stand, this aggression against Kuwait.
This was the first real war that we had cameras on the scene. Here we had live satellite coverage of all the key locations, and people could watch a war unfold live. At that time, we were the only 24/7 cable news network.
I'm pleased to report that we can go back to Baghdad now and our 3 correspondents there. Let's see who picks up the phone.
Yes, this is Peter Arnett here. We're just temporarily off the air.
I remember very vividly, I was at the Pentagon covering the war. The air war was starting, and the Iraqis responded by launching Scud missiles against targets in Saudi Arabia, where the U.S. had deployed thousands and thousands of troops. I remember they started launching Scud missiles at various targets in Israel.
I am told that the U.S. and other allied air forces are revisiting many of the original targets, making sure they were completely put out of commission.
And so I checked with my sources at the Pentagon, and they told me exactly where that Scud landed.
And we'll be, as the Secretary said, we're going to be as forthcoming as we possibly can. All at the same time.
Innocently, I went on the air and reported that. Well, all hell broke out. Generals were calling me, top Pentagon officials, "What are you doing, Wolf?" And I was confused. I didn't know why they were so upset. They said, "You're spotting for Saddam Hussein. You're telling them precisely," and they're watching you live on CNN right now, "you're telling them where that missile landed." And so that was the last time we or any other television news organization basically specifically said where these Scuds were landing. And it underscored this new powerful dimension, live war coverage. Innocent reporters could inadvertently provide information that could result in the deaths and the destruction of a lot of people. So you didn't want to do that. After several weeks of pounding from the air, and they were knocking Iraqi targets in Kuwait and elsewhere in Iraq, at that point they realized, you know what, you can't just do it from the air, you got to send ground troops in.
Just to explain to our viewers why you did not hear from us for a nervously long time. For the past 20 minutes I've been hiding under a table, and what happened was the security people made a sweep. They got very upset that there were 3 mortal...
Everybody else, all the other news organizations pulled out of Baghdad because they were afraid that the war was going to start. And these courageous CNN journalists, they stayed there.
All the flying shells and falling bullets made us glad we brought our helmets with us from the battlefield.
So it really did put CNN on the map as a global news organization, and people were glued to their TVs during those days. The U.S. stopped at the end of February 1991 and didn't go and try to destroy Saddam Hussein's regime or take over Iraq or get rid of Saddam Hussein. This was a limited operation that President Bush had authorized: liberate Kuwait and then stop. And that's exactly what they did.
This war is now behind us. Ahead of us is the difficult task of securing a potentially historic peace.
I was extremely proud that I was a member of that CNN team that covered that first Gulf War.
Here at the Pentagon, we are broadcasting now from the CNN office at the Pentagon.
I think we really did it in a responsible way. We really did it thoroughly, and it really did change CNN. The image of CNN put us on the map. To this day, 25 years later, I walk around here in the United States, or indeed around the world, people always come up to me, "Oh, I remember the Gulf War, I remember what you were doing." As we and other networks have been reporting now for months, the United States was going to take those missile sites out. And it's a source of pride to me that, you know, I, quote, became famous covering that war. I worked really hard, but we did a good job.